In the heart of Hangzhou, China, a young boy named Ma Jun, later known to the world as Jack Ma. His family was poor, opportunities were rare, and the future was uncertain. But even as a child, Jack had something that couldn't be taught. A relentless curiosity, a hunger to learn, and a stubborn refusal to give up. He wasn't born brilliant. In fact, Jack Ma failed the math portion of his college entrance exam, not once, not twice, but 3 times. His scores were so low that he was rejected by every university he applied to. Except one. Eventually, he got into a local teachers' college, not because he was the best, but because he simply refused to stop trying. He studied English, not because it promised wealth, but because he was fascinated by it. He rode his bike every morning to a hotel just to talk to foreign tourists, offering free tours around his city so he could practice speaking with them. For 9 years, he did this, not for money, not for fame, but because he wanted to understand the world outside China. Even after college, life didn't get easier. Jack Ma applied for over 30 jobs and was rejected from every single one. He went to police academies, rejected. Applied for low-level service jobs, rejected. But the one rejection that stung the most, KFC. When the fast food chain opened in his city, they hired 24 people out of 25 applicants. Jack Ma was the only one who didn't make the cut. Not good looking, not strong, not qualified. That's what people told him. It was rejection after rejection, failure after failure, and yet, every time he fell, he got up. Every time he was told no, he found another door to knock on. Most people would have given up. Most people would have accepted that maybe they just weren't cut out for success. But Jack Ma wasn't. Most people, he didn't measure himself by the number of failures he faced. He measured himself by how many times he stood back up. He believed, deeply, that persistence was more important than talent, that courage mattered more than intelligence, that if you can survive long enough, the world eventually has to pay attention. In his 20s, Jack tried to start his own business. It failed. He started another one. That failed too. He even tried building a translation company, but it didn't take off the way he hoped. There was no sign that greatness was waiting around the corner. There was no proof that things would get better. But he kept going, not because he had a clear path, but because he had faith that something bigger was possible. It wasn't easy. His friends told him to quit. His parents worried for him. The world kept showing him the door, and he kept knocking anyway. What's even more remarkable is that Jack Ma didn't even touch a computer until he was in his 30s. The first time he went online, he typed the word beer into a search engine, and found results from all over the world, but none from China. That moment changed his life. That was when he realized the internet wasn't just a tool. It was a revolution. A revolution his country hadn't joined yet, and maybe, just maybe, he could be the one to bring it home. But even with that revelation, the odds were stacked against him. He had no background in tech. He didn't know how to code. He had no money, no investors, no connections. All he had was a vision, a belief that the internet could help small businesses in China connect with the world. It was a crazy idea. People laughed at him. Experts told him it would never work. But Jack wasn't interested in pleasing the experts. He was interested in changing lives. What kept him going wasn't success. It wasn't praise, because he had neither. What kept him going was rejection, failure, doubt. Because every time the world told him he wasn't good enough, he made a decision to prove them wrong, not with anger, but with action. He didn't fight back with arguments. He fought back with persistence. He once said, "If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure." That wasn't just a quote for him. It was a way of life, a code he lived by every single day. The truth is, greatness doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who are willing to be rejected, humiliated, and ignored, and still get back up. Jack Ma's life wasn't a smooth climb. It was a battlefield. But instead of retreating, he marched forward. Through failure, through fear, through doors that slammed shut again and again. He didn't succeed because he had it easy. He succeeded because he refused to quit when things were hard. Imagine what it takes to be the one person rejected from a job at a fast food chain, and still believe you're meant to build something world. Imagine having your ideas mocked, your skills questioned, and your dreams doubted, and still standing up the next day with more fire than ever. That's Jack Ma's real superpower. Not genius, not luck, but resilience. The kind of resilience that doesn't just survive failure. It uses failure as fuel. He didn't chase money, he chased purpose. He didn't chase praise, he chased possibility. And that's why his story resonates with so many people. Because deep down, we all face rejection. We all face doors that don't open. But Jack Ma teaches us that those doors aren't the end. They're just detours, opportunities to grow stronger, braver, and more determined. He looked at failure not as a wall, but as a lesson. Every no taught him something. Every failure was a step closer to success. He learned that the people who succeed aren't always the smartest, or the fastest, or the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up, the ones who stay in the game long enough for the game to change. Jack Ma's story is proof that you don't have to be born extraordinary to do something extraordinary. You just have to believe when no one else does, keep going when everyone else quits, and never, ever stop dreaming. Before there was Alibaba, before the billions, before the fame, there was just a man who kept getting back up, and that's where it all begins. Jack Ma, the man behind Alibaba, the largest online marketplace in the world. Jack Ma didn't have a fancy background. He wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't a tech genius, but he had something that was even more powerful, an unquenchable desire to make a difference. The story of Alibaba is a story of China's rise on the world stage. It's the story of how a handful of friends dared to dream big when everyone else doubted them. It all started in a small apartment, no fancy office, no expensive equipment, just a vision. Jack Ma had seen the internet for the first time during a trip to the United States, and it hit him like lightning. This wasn't just a tool. This was the future, and China, his country, wasn't even on the map yet. He came back to China obsessed with one question. Why wasn't China online? Why weren't Chinese businesses taking advantage of this new global frontier? That question became an idea, and that idea became the seed of something massive. In 1999, Jack Ma gathered 17 of his friends and pitched them something they couldn't quite understand. He told them he wanted to create a platform where small Chinese businesses could connect with the world. A place where buyers and sellers could meet online, trade and grow, all without leaving their hometown. He called it Alibaba, because it was easy to remember, recognized across cultures, and, in Jack's words, it opened doors. Open sesame. That was the dream, to open a new world of possibilities for small businesses that had been ignored. But there was a problem. Actually, there were many. First, he had no money, no connections in the tech world, no experience running a business at that scale. And this was 1999. In China, the internet was still a mystery to most people. Trying to raise money for a tech startup in that environment was like trying to sell ice in a snowstorm. Nobody understood what he was doing. Investors laughed. Bankers shut the door. So Jack did what he always did. He bet on people. He convinced his friends, not with money, but with belief. He told them they weren't just building a company, they were building the future. He promised them long hours, little pay, and the chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. And somehow, that was enough. They set up their office in his apartment. They sat on the floor, coding, planning, and dreaming late into the night. They built the first version of Alibaba with barely any resources. The power would go out. The internet would crash. They didn't even have air conditioning, but they had fire in their hearts. The kind of fire that can't be bought or faked. The kind that grows stronger the more people doubt you. From day one, they faced challenges most startups couldn't survive. The Chinese internet infrastructure was underdeveloped. The government had tight controls. Most small businesses didn't trust online platforms. And worst of all, no one believed in e-commerce yet. People didn't feel comfortable buying or selling through a computer screen. But Jack understood something others didn't. He understood people. He knew that if he could create trust, everything else would follow. He focused on building a platform that was simple, honest, and helpful for small businesses. He didn't care about chasing the top corporations. He wanted to empower the little guys, the mom-and-pop shops, the underdogs who had been left behind. And because of that, Alibaba wasn't just a website, it was a movement, a digital revolution for everyday entrepreneurs. But movements don't grow without resistance. As Alibaba began to gain traction, bigger players started paying attention. Competitors entered the scene with more money, better connections, and stronger tech backgrounds. Companies like eBay expanded aggressively into China, thinking they could dominate the market overnight. They underestimated Jack Ma. Jack knew Alibaba couldn't outspend these giants, so he outsmarted them. He focused entirely on local knowledge. While others tried to import foreign models, he built his business around the unique needs of Chinese users. He spoke their language. He understood their fears. He earned their trust. When eBay came to China, Jack launched Taobao, a consumer-to-consumer marketplace. designed specifically for Chinese buyers and sellers. He made it free to use, intuitive, and personal. He even added features like instant messaging between buyers and sellers, something that felt strange to Western companies, but natural to Chinese consumers. The battle wasn't easy. At one point, Alibaba almost ran out of cash. Jack had to take massive risks just to keep the lights on. But in the middle of that storm, something incredible happened. People started believing. Users began flooding the platform. Businesses that had never seen growth suddenly found international customers. A farmer could sell his products to someone on the other side of the country. A small toy factory could get orders from the US. And the more people used the platform, the more powerful it became. Still, funding was tight. Traditional banks refused to lend. Venture capitalists didn't trust Chinese startups. But Jack didn't give up. He kept pitching, kept knocking on doors, until finally, he found a believer. A small investment from a group of international backers gave Alibaba just enough runway to stay alive. Then came the breakthrough moment. In 2005, Yahoo invested $1 billion in Alibaba. That deal changed everything. It gave the company the capital to grow, the credibility to attract more users, and the momentum to push past its rivals. Jack called it a marriage, not a deal, and it gave Alibaba the strength to beat eBay in China, a battle many thought he would lose. But Jack didn't win by copying others. He won by being bold, by being local, and by being laser-focused on serving people who had been ignored. Throughout it all, he never let fear win. He once said, "Today is hard. Tomorrow will be worse. But the day after tomorrow will be sunshine." And that's exactly how he built Alibaba. Through the storms, toward the sun. His leadership wasn't about perfection, it was about conviction. He inspired loyalty not by being the smartest in the room, but by being the most resilient. He would stand up in front of his small team and tell them, "We will survive. We will win. Just trust me." And they did. Jack led with stories, with humor, with humility. He never pretended to be a tech genius. In fact, he constantly joked about how little he knew, but what he did know was people. And that's what made him dangerous. In the best way. As Alibaba expanded, it began redefining the very concept of business in China. It made entrepreneurship possible for millions. It gave small-town dreamers a global voice. And it didn't stop there. Alibaba wasn't just a marketplace anymore. It was becoming an ecosystem. Logistics, cloud, computing, payments, marketing, all under one roof. It was a giant built from grit. But the most powerful part of this story isn't the billion-dollar deals or the flashy headlines. It's that it all started with nothing, no money, no power, just an idea, a room full of friends, and the stubborn belief that something better was possible. Jack Ma's journey with Alibaba is proof that success isn't reserved for the rich or the lucky. It belongs to those who are willing to risk, to fail, and to rise again. It belongs to those who lead with heart, who serve with purpose, and who dare to believe in the impossible. Alibaba wasn't just a business. It was a statement that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a few dreamers with no money and no experience could change the world, and they did. Success didn't change Jack Ma, it revealed him. As Alibaba grew into one of the most powerful companies in the world, Jack didn't become a typical billionaire. He didn't try to blend into the world of polished suits and Wall Street smiles. He stayed Jack, quirky, honest, funny, and brutally real. He had taken a group of misfits, built a business in a space where nobody thought a Chinese company could win, and turned it into a global empire. Alibaba wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, growing at speeds that stunned the world. In 2014, Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It raised $25 billion in what became the largest IPO in history at the time. Jack Ma, the man who was once rejected from KFC, had just built one of the biggest internet companies on the planet. But for Jack, the numbers were never the end goal. He always said that making money was easy. The hard part was making sustainable impact, creating jobs, giving people the tools to chase their own dreams. That's what mattered to him. At its core, Alibaba was never just about business, it was about empowering others. Jack understood that small businesses were the backbone of the economy. So he built platforms, tools, and systems to help them compete in a world that had always favored the big players. Whether it was farmers selling goods online or rural entrepreneurs starting digital storefronts, Alibaba gave people access. It gave them hope. Jack's leadership style was unlike anything the corporate world had seen. He wasn't obsessed with being right. He was obsessed with learning. He surrounded himself with people smarter than him, He listened more than he spoke. He admitted his flaws publicly and laughed at his own mistakes. He believed that emotional intelligence was more important than IQ. He told his team that being kind, being honest, and being brave would take them further than any spreadsheet ever could. While others built systems to control, Jack built systems to empower. He didn't run Alibaba with fear. He ran it with belief. He created a culture where people felt safe to try, to fail, and to try again. He often said, "You should learn from your competitor, but never copy. Copy, and you die." For Jack, innovation came from heart, not from mimicry. Even when Alibaba became a giant, Jack continued to speak like an underdog. In rooms filled with millionaires and presidents, he would tell stories about his childhood, his failures, and his stubborn refusal to quit. He reminded people that it was okay to be weird, okay to be rejected, okay to be different, as long as you didn't stop. His speeches became legendary, not because they were flashy, but because they were real. He didn't talk about luxury or power. He talked about courage, about responsibility, about staying hungry even when you've already eaten. One of Jack's most powerful beliefs was this: help young people, help small guys, because small guys will be big. Young people will have the seeds you bury in their minds, and when they grow up, they will change the world. That wasn't just a nice quote. That was his mission. Whether through Alibaba's initiatives or through the Jack Ma Foundation, he focused on education, rural development, environmental causes, and entrepreneurship. He believed in lifting others as he climbed, because for Jack, success wasn't just about what you built. It was about who you helped along the way. He could have held on to power forever. He could have clung to the spotlight. But in 2019, Jack shocked the world again. He announced his retirement from Alibaba, not because he was tired, but because he believed it was time for the next generation to lead. He said, "I don't want to die in my office. I want to die on the beach." He stepped down with grace, passing the torch to a younger leadership team. And he did it the same way he built his company, with vision, humility, and heart. Since retiring, Jack hasn't disappeared. He's simply shifted his focus. He's become a global voice for education, especially redefining education in the age of AI. He's challenged traditional systems, encouraged creativity, promoted kindness as a strength, not a weakness. He often speaks about how the future won't belong to those who memorize facts, but to those who think creatively, who solve problems, and who work with empathy. He has warned the world not to train kids to compete with machines, but to teach them what machines can do. Imagine, love, dream, and care. Even with all his fame, Jack Ma never lets people forget where he came from. He tells students that he was never the smartest in his class, that he failed more times than he can count, that he got rejected from jobs people take for granted, and that all of that made him who he is. Because hear us the truth Jack Ma's story teaches us. You don't have to be born extraordinary to create something extraordinary. You just have to be relentless. You just have to believe when no one else does. You just have to show up again and again with fire in your chest and hope in your eyes. He showed the world that success doesn't have a blueprint, that you can come from a poor family, speak broken English, get rejected from every job you apply for, and still rise, still lead, still win. Jack once said, "Before I'm 20, be a good student. When you're 30, follow somebody. Between 30 and 40, try to do something for yourself. Between 40 and 50, do things that you are good at. Between 50 and 60, train and develop young people. When you're over 60, spend time with your grandchildren." That's the rhythm of life, according to Jack. And that's how he's lived his. His legacy isn't just Alibaba, it's not just wealth. It's the millions of people who now believe they can try. Because he tried. Who believe they can lead. Because he led. Who believe they can rise. Because he rose from nothing. In a world obsessed with shortcuts and overnight fame, Jack Ma is a reminder that slow, stubborn, and sincere can still win. That kindness and courage are still powerful currencies. That you can be underestimated your whole life, and still leave a mark that never fades. He didn't build an empire with code. He built it with belief. He didn't win because the odds were in his favor. He won because he refused to back down when they weren't. And now, it's your turn. If you've been told you're not good enough, if you've been laughed at, overlooked, rejected, if your dreams seem too big and your resources too small, remember Jack Ma. Remember the man who was rejected from 30 jobs, the man who had no tech background, the man who started with nothing and built everything. Let that remind you. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. You just need to begin. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in yourself. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step. Let Jack Ma's journey fuel your own. Let it remind you that your story isn't over. That rejection isn't the end. It's the beginning of resilience. That failure doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're building. The world needs your voice, your ideas, your fight, your heart. So go after your dream like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. And if Jack Ma can rise from nothing and change the world, why not you? If this story inspired you, take a second right now to hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories like this. Real people, real struggles, real triumphs. All here to fire up your mind and feed your soul. And remember, every legend started as a nobody. Every hero was once doubted. And every empire was once just an idea in someone's heart. Keep dreaming, keep believing. Your journey is just getting started.